I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
Welcome to Pride Month. In this episode, we're covering off 2023's Good Grief and 2009's A Single Man.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Good Grief before, so I wasn't sure how similar these would be, but I think there's a lot to talk about. So these essentially are both films about a gay man who loses his long-term partner in a car accident. And then the coming to terms with that and dealing with the grief that ensues.
Yeah, this was Dan Levy's first.
Yeah, it was it was a feature film directorial debut for Dan Levy. Yeah. He had directed a few episodes of Schitt's Creek before this, but that's it. And it was also A Single Man is a directorial debut for Tom Ford.
He was a fashion designer?
Yeah, pretty well-known fashion designer, and this was his first foray into film directing.
Both of these movies have their own very unique style to them. A Single Man it plays a lot on cinematography, it plays a lot on first-person perspective, it plays a lot of the intimacy that occurs between two people, and I feel like Good Grief plays more on the sort of terms of what's a better way to put it? It feels very cold, if that makes sense. Because he sort of is, his character is dealing with quite a massive reveal that's spoilers, obviously, for any movies review.
Yeah, I will say we're big spoilers for both of these because I absolutely want to talk about how they end.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk through the whole of these movies. So if you haven't seen them, I genuinely do recommend watching both. A Single Man is a movie I have watched many times, and it still makes me cry. We watched it for the podcast, so I'm being clinical about it, and then Nick looks over and they're just like weeping.
Yeah.
I 100% will always recommend A Single Man, but you kind of got to be in the mindset for it because it gets pretty sad. I mean, the premise is sad for both of these films, so that's not a surprise.
To articulate better what I was trying to say, A Single Man, the colour shift in a lot of the scenes is very, very vibrant. It's to draw your attention to what his character, which I cannot remember. George is seeing from his perspective, where I feel like Good Grief, the beginning of the movie had such a warm tone, like the warm colouring, and then it becomes very cold, and it takes a long time for that colour to sort of come back in.
Yeah.
And
they both do really interesting things with colour theory and saturation and things like I love it that both of them, because it's something that I really love about A Single Man. So watching Good Grief for the first time, that moment where it cuts from the very colourful scene to just like black and white, it's not black and white, but everything in the room around him is black and white. I was like, oh, they're doing something similar here.
And like it's really well done, because it is sort of like if the partner was the light of their life and the light of their life is left, you would be in this sort of like cold. And the costume design and the set design did very well for both of these movies.
Yeah.
They both, in my opinion, revolve around that sort of upper class, sort of high end society. Gay men, because they are not like, I would love to see like a romantic comedy with like blue collar gays.
Oh yeah,
like
the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're the main kind of gay, the character in the main cast who is like a gay man is very flamboyant and an actor and an artist and sort of, with that he kind of ends up with a guy who is literally a construction worker, and you're like, oh, perfect.
I think like as we've watched quite a few what was the joke about the Coen brother keeping the other Coen brother in check that we did the other time?
Yeah, we've watched a lot of lesbian movies.
Yeah.
None of them similar enough to cover on the podcast.
Because in Recommended it was like Love Lives Bleeding, and like that is the most gritty movie I've seen in a while where pretty much everybody is like very, very, very it's sort of like the concept of like hyper violent.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's very visceral. I'll leave it with that. But these movies are very, very like everything's subtle. Everything is very smooth. And that's what I'm talking about. Like the high society is like everything feels like it's made with heavy cream and butter, and it's just very. And then you have this rocky moment, and the thing is that like both of the love interest, the partners in this movies who die, both die in a very visceral and real way. It is not like it is could happen to anybody moment. Yep. It is not it's not some sort of overarching thing of, you could do it from the point of view of like their partner dies in the tragedy that was 9/11, or you could have it in something else that's like grandiose, like a plane crash or some sort of natural disaster.
Yeah.
But it is very mundane of like, these people had baggage with them and they just died in a car crash.
Yeah.
It's like there was stuff going on and it was all out of their control. A little bit of different types of car crashes. One of them is because of weather. The other one is literally just a traffic collision between the taxi that he's in and
a drunk driver. Or the implication is that it's a drunk driver hits him.
And it is very, very quick. There's no like, and I think the way they found out was way worse. Because literally one of them is he's just left the house, and the other one he seems to be away somewhere.
Yeah, he was going to visit family. He was bringing it's mentioned later on, he was bringing the dogs to visit his family because his mother loves their dogs.
Yeah.
And there's like a throwaway line that one of the dogs was found at the accident, but the other one wasn't.
Yeah. The fact that he can't attend the funeral, like, there is no actual funeral scene in A Single Man, and I think that's actually worse for the point of view of the mental health of the characters, because these movies are a lot about mental health.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And dealing with grief and dealing with it in your own way. The funeral scene in Good Grief is ridiculous.
I will say it's actually good foreshadowing, which I didn't realize at the time.
Yeah.
Because it's very much showing that every person who knew his husband knew a different side of him. Yeah. Like, he was a different man to each of these people. And, like, the first person giving a eulogy, it seems like a totally devoid from the man that he knows him as. Because she's an actress. So, in both movies, they are in the arts.
Yeah. In
A Single Man, more practically, because one is an English professor and the other is an architect.
Yeah.
And in Good Grief, they're an author and an illustrator, or artist, because he does painting himself, but he's been illustrating these books. And there's a film series being adapted from the book series.
Yeah.
So it's the lead actress of the film series does a eulogy and is like so over the top, but is making it all about her and about the film. More so than about...
Yeah, they're not going to finish the series and I'll no longer be famous and I'll be known for this one thing because you died.
And I hope in your honor they finish it. It's like, okay.
It'll be the equivalent when George R.R. Martin dies and he hasn't finished Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other person who eulogizes is his father, who talks about, him as a child being a little bit feminine and him trying to push him towards the masculine things and how he regrets that. And I think that's something that, I know the character has passed away, but that's something that the character in A Single Man, Jim, doesn't get.
Yeah.
Because his parents didn't even want to inform George that he had died. His cousin called him secretly.
Yeah.
Because they didn't approve, obviously, of him being gay. It's set, the setting is quite different because it's set in 1962 versus 2023. But they'd been together for 16 years.
What blew my mind in that scene is because David Bradley.
Oh yeah.
David Bradley. For me, has never been. He's sort of typecast as like this weird, grumpy old man.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it's so funny to me seeing him in like this like emotionally open casting. Because you're just like, there was a scene where he's just like, oh, hi, daddy, to him. And I was like, oh, that's weird, but okay, moving on. Like, and then it's just like, no, he's his actual father.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's that moment of just...
He's very vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. Which is not the kind of characters I've seen him play. Because what did we watch him in the most recently? It was the one where the whole town, someone gets murdered and the whole town turns on everybody. Was that Broad Creek with David Tennant?
I haven't seen that. Broadchurch?
Broadchurch.
I've never seen a single episode of that.
Okay.
Did you watch it without me?
Maybe. No, I'm sure he was in something that we watched. It must be.
Frankenstein. He was in Frankenstein. He played a blind man in that. He's basically the only person who was nice to Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I don't know what we've watched recently. He does the voice of Geppetto in Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Was it that?
No.
Now we're just going to be looking through. I don't want to be just looking because he's been in a lot of things.
It was a TV show, yeah.
He's been in a lot.
Yes, a lot of stuff. Yeah, it was no, it must be. I'm sure we watched Broadchurch together.
I've never seen a single episode of Broadchurch.
Well, apparently I watched Broadchurch without you. Moving back to
genuinely, I've never watched a single episode of it.
That's crazy.
Something else that you've watched without me.
Oh, hold it. You're reading the books. Anyway, moving on.
Finish the books.
Yeah, finish the books.
Anyway.
Anywho. I don't know what we're talking about. Oh, yeah.
You were talking about him being very vulnerable.
Yeah, the funeral scene, and it's such an interesting casting because I'm so used to him playing, like, grumpy old people.
Yeah, on the flip side, because we were talking about the George finding out about Jim's death in A Single Man, I think that's one of the most perfect pieces of acting I've ever seen.
Yeah. Because he
stays very calm and composed on the phone and then hangs up and he just sits there with it and it doesn't say anything and just like you can read all of his emotions on his face and he like sags back into the chair, his whole body, everything about him changes in an instant. And I mean you've only been sitting with this character for a little while, but you know what he's normally like already. It's very kind of meticulous, like they show you what kind of a person he is, and then this is like him fully breaking, but just very, very subtly.
It's
I was like, that's the scene that won him an Oscar nom.
Yeah. Julianne Moore's character in this, which is relevant to that moment, because when he does actually break down, he goes and like basically collapses with her.
Yeah.
She is absolutely bananas to her, just in general.
Yeah, Ruth Negga's character in Good Grief actually reminded me of her a lot.
Yeah. There is just a moment of, I guess, the mask coming off, because like it is very much... It very much reminds... Their sort of relationship and the kind of person he is very much reminds me of like Captain Holt and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Of just that very high-end society, very stiff upper lip, very, very, when he's making puns and it's just like, I hate when you do this when I'm mad at you, and it's just like, if he made a joke, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And to have him like actually just completely and utterly break was such a powerful moment, because there is a lot of back and forth energy between their two characters. Because sort of Charlie's sort of like holding a lamp out for him.
Yeah.
And they live so close by. The fact that they'd been in a relationship previously. She had a relationship, and then her husband left, and her child grew out of the fact, and she's basically sort of living that sort of like, because it is set in California, it's sitting that very like old Hollywood starlet lifestyle of just like drinking all day, spending literal hours doing makeup, having the most over-the-top gorish house, and it's the difference between them shows because she is very black and white on the inside, but then portrays like this colourful outside. And he is the opposite. He is this very black and white on the outside, but it is very like, because the light has literally gone out of his life, like he sees everything sort of with the colour palette turned down, and it's only these brief moments of reflection or sort of fascination. It's very funny to me because he's got like, and don't take me wrong, I'm not trying to be offensive, he's got like predator vision for other gay men. And it's so funny to me watching the scenes where he's just sort of like, it almost comes off with on the spectrum of like laser focused into like one aspect of a person.
Yeah.
And the cinematography in it is so brilliant because it is just a moment of like zooming in on an eye, zooming in on lips, zooming in on like a facial feature.
Yeah.
Or the mannerism of a person. And it is like he has predator, like Terminator, like some sort of predatory vision of like zooming in on like.
I love the moment where he's talking to Lee Pace, and Lee Pace is talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis and building bomb shelters and all this, and he's just like distracted watching topless men play tennis behind him. And it's just like zooming in on like a nipple, and you're like, okay. But I did, because like I said, I've watched this a few times. I was really kind of paying attention to there's so many signs. So essentially, most of A Single Man, like the chronological plot you're following takes place in one day.
Yeah.
You do get like obviously loads of flashbacks and things. And normally the color is way more saturated in the flashbacks because it's when he still had Jim in his life. But the plot of that, the whole thing around that day is that he's planning to kill himself at the end of the day. So there are a lot of signs around it. And watching it and thinking about those signs, like the fact that he's, extra nice to people. Yeah. He's really nice to his maid, and she looks confused. He's really nice to his secretary, and she's a bit confused by it. He steps out of what he normally does in his lecture to talk about minorities and fear. But he also twice makes jokes about death. Yeah. And one of them is that bomb shelter thing where the guy's saying, if you don't build a bomb shelter, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to try and get into someone else's, And then he says, like, oh, well, if that's what the world's going to be like, I don't want to live in it. And it's such a throwaway line, but we, as the audience, know he's fully planning to not live in it. And I can't remember what the other one was, but there was another time that he makes, like, a throwaway joke about not living anymore. And you're just like, oh, okay. But the more I was, like, watching for all the kind of signs of that, I also realized that that's what Kenny is doing. Because I think if you watch this the very first time through, it's very easy to read it as Kenny is a student who is interested in him and is like lusting after him and trying to, follow him, go after him in that way. Yeah. But then, like, I think Kenny is seeing all the signs. And I don't know if that's because Kenny has felt suicidal, because he kind of talks about his own mental health a little bit quite openly, or if it's because he knows someone who has killed themselves. But it's like, when he arrives that day, he hears that Kenny has asked for his address, and he assumes, oh, Kenny wants to sleep with me. Yeah. And then Kenny takes note of the fact that he's acting differently in class, that he's distracted, first of all, and then that he's talking differently to normal interrupts him when he's pulling the gun out of his bag in his car, and then everything he seems to do throughout the day is trying to get him to open up, trying to get him to see something else, and then finally culminating with, when he falls asleep, Kenny takes the gun and hides it with himself because he knows that that's what he's planning to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really fully understood on previous watches that is what Kenny is doing the whole time. Because from George's eyes, he thinks he's hitting on him.
Yeah.
And so because you're watching the whole movie through George's eyes, you see it through that lens also at first.
Yeah.
And then, it becomes apparent through the movie. But if you're watching it from the other lens, from the beginning, it's clear that that's what Kenny is concerned about the whole way through the movie, which is really interesting. And then in Good Grief, the kind of similar character is Theo, is that his name? The Frenchman that he meets. But in that one, he's they don't have any background together at all. They're not student and teacher, or they're not. They just meet each other, but that's a person who is open with him, and that allows him to become open.
Yeah, it's a very interesting scene because they go to some sort of weird performance art thing, and he meets Theo, and it's sort of very much we could have small bullshit chit chat, or we could actually talk like people.
Yeah,
and it's such an interesting scene because Theo regrets it, and he's like, I should have just commented on your jacket, but I think it's what Mark, Dan Levy's character at the time, really needed.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, his circle of friends are very supportive, but not in the way he needs, because they're trying to sort of, I don't know, they sort of have their own problems, and their own problems are sort of the main focus of their own lives when they're not really, but they're sort of trying to get him out, trying to get him to do something, because otherwise he's just bed rotting, going through the motions of everything. The scenes with his partner's agent are very fascinating because they feel very as I said, going through the motions, but they're she's really supporting him in the way she can, which is professionally.
Yeah.
Because his husband's dead, everybody's trying to screw them over.
Yeah.
Financially, they're wanting the advance on the books back. They're trying to get out of all the deals, and he ends up saying, he's only been dead a month, and it's well, Americans don't have tact because it's all set in London, and Paris at one point.
Yeah. Also interesting that in Good Grief, it's I guess Canadian, because Dan Levy's Canadian in London, and in A Single Man, it's a British person in California.
Yeah. That sort of those sequences, it's the way he interacts with people. Marcus interacts with people is very showing of where he is grief wise.
Yeah.
Because his friends are nightmares, realistically.
Yeah. I do think, they all, by the end of it, acknowledge what they have to work on.
Yeah.
And they realize that, hey, actually, we're not helping each other or ourselves in our behavior as we have it right now.
Because Sophie's got very self-destructive behavior.
Yeah.
Thomas is obsessed with somebody who he used to date, and he's the most like Charlie in that.
I think they both have aspects of Charlie. Because also Marcus and Thomas had a previous relationship.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and she is very self-destructive with the whole
Yeah,
I'm going to eat clean and drink and smoke as much as I can.
And Charlie, I would say Charlie and Sophie, is that her name? Riznaga's character, are both alcoholics.
Yeah.
And both very indulgent, both very self-destructive, both very, over the top, exaggerated in everything they do. And then also Charlie and Thomas both have that kind of obsession with this past relationship.
Yeah.
They both were in a relationship with our main character before. And and are both kind of so stuck in that they're not moving on and not having new relationships.
Yeah.
And not building new bonds. Because, I mean, the thing with Charlie is that, like, you see her, and like you said, she's spending hours on her makeup, she's living this lifestyle. We don't see her interact with anyone else.
Yeah.
She's not throwing parties or going to parties. She's not, like, schmoozing or meeting people. Who's she doing it for?
Yeah. The character that I feel the sorriest for is Luca.
Yeah, that's a bum situation.
Because that feels like, obviously, Mark is not happy with the whole situation when he finds out about the leased property in Paris. So they're like, oh, let's go to Paris for the weekend. Like,
so essentially, because we've kind of flipped over this, essentially, Good Grief takes place the day that... I can't think of the husband's name. The day that Marcus's husband dies, and then there's like a 6 months later, and then it's a year later. Oliver, yep. And Oliver, before he left in the taxi and then got hit by a drunk driver, gave Marcus a card, and Marcus hasn't opened it. So a year later, he opens it ahead of the anniversary of the death, and discovers that the card was telling him that Oliver has found someone else.
Yeah.
And he started another relationship. And then he finds out through the agent that he was leasing this apartment in Paris, and that often spending for two over there. So he decides to bring his destructive friends with him without telling them that revelation. But they go to Paris together to this apartment that he didn't know existed, but is clearly like set up as like
his bachelor pad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Luca is the other man in the situation who has no idea about anything else. And of course, like, instantly he turns up, has a key, and he's like, I think I'm on the wrong apartment. It's like, then why did your key work? And he's like, it's like, so the man you were sleeping with was my husband. He's dead. What the fuck are you doing here? And it's a very interesting scene because, like, all of that hate and sort of anger is misguided.
Yeah.
And Mark realizes that.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can just, like, wait in the bathroom until someone comes and gets me because I'm from Berlin and have nowhere else to go. And they're like, yeah, right, like, you can, like, it's okay. Like, all of that was not against you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm angry at the betrayal rather than the person who unknowingly betrayed me.
It's also more than that because he talks about it with Theo that he got into a relationship with Oliver quite suddenly after his mother died.
Yeah.
And he feels that he distracted himself from that grief with the relationship.
Yeah.
And, like, they rushed into marriage and things. And he then, at that point, you know, he had the year where he didn't have a distraction. And then he is using the anger to distract himself from the grief he's experiencing.
Yeah.
So instead of processing the grief of losing his husband, he's found, you know, this other emotion to put everything into, which is this anger at this, you know, other life he was leading and the betrayal, like you said, and you know, the fact that he's been grieving for a year for a man who was planning to leave him, essentially.
It's a real kick in the gut. That I was saying.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating plot and premise for both of these movies. Because it is the way that people deal with grief in a both are really unhealthy ways.
Yeah.
But it also shows that the reason that they can't deal with it is there is no support structure and they won't let anybody or ask for help. Especially with a single man. Like, that is just...
It's a really horrible situation. I mean, it's horrible, obviously, either way. But in a single man, there's, like, a very specific... You know, and I think you can appreciate this from different walks of life. That, like, he essentially is masking.
Yeah.
Because he's been with this man for 16 years in a society where that's not something that can be approved of. Because this is set in 1962. I think they were together since 1946.
Yeah.
You know, they met when Jim was in the Navy, was just waiting to be discharged after the war. That they've, you know, in the 40s and 50s, you couldn't really be openly gay, and you couldn't be openly in this long-term gay relationship, and especially for him to hold down his job as a university professor, you know, that couldn't come out about him. So you know, that they live their whole life together, kind of behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And then he can't publicly grieve.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever have the opportunity, like he does with Charlie, because they're so close, she knows about it, but even Charlie doesn't understand. Charlie says, you know, it wasn't real. It was a substitute for something real.
Yeah.
Which is horrible. But he can't, you know, the world doesn't acknowledge that this man was his partner. You know, and he has to just keep going as if nothing happened. And he just can't do it. Which is why he's planning to take his own life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's something, like, extra sad about the fact that this is, you know, he talks about invisible minorities and being, you know, the fear about different minorities. They talk about, you know, anti-Semitism and what happened in the Holocaust, and about that being fear of the unknown, fear of people different from yourself, fear of minorities, and they talk about, you know, how that fear grows when the minority is invisible, when it's when they're indistinguishable. You can't just look at someone and tell. And that's what he's feeling about himself all the time.
Because that whole mindset of that era was just like about, you know, getting people to build bomb shelters and then get landscapers over the top of it so no one knows you're at a bomb shelter, and, like, you know, it's communists are at every door, and
the Red Scare was very real. That, you know, like that invisible, you know, you don't know if your neighbor is a communist. You don't know if your neighbor is gay. You don't know if your neighbor is Jewish. You know, that he could never live. And there's a moment, and it's him sitting on the toilet. It's so stupid. Yeah. But he's watching the family next door, and it's just, again, it's all, like, I don't know why Colin Firth didn't win an Oscar for this, but it's all in the facial expressions that, like, you can tell he's mourning for a life that he never got to have. Yeah. That he and his partner couldn't be out in the garden kissing each other on the forehead. They couldn't have children. They couldn't have, you know, an open life that these neighbors next door take for granted. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going on a tangent a little bit, but I think there's just, like, this extra layer to setting the film in that era. Yeah. Where none of that could be open. And I don't think it takes away from Good Grief that it's not set in that era. I think it's just a very different, you know, that it's set in the modern era, and everyone's much more open, and he's at the funeral. I mean, they were married, you know, it's not just that they were in a relationship, they were married, and that, like, when they, you know, when they go to Paris and Sophie meets someone on the apps that she's going to go on a date with, she's like, he's bringing gay friends, you know, we can all go together, and, you know, there's a lot of artists in their circle, a lot of gay people in their circle. You know, it makes, like, even the agent was talking about her wife, you know, so it's taking place in a much more accepting and open society. So it's just going to be different struggles. Not a lesser struggle, but a different.
And I think the endings are very, very different to these movies. Where the movie ends is super important in both of these, because it is very much the product of the rest of the movie. And that sounds like the same for every movie.
But there's a lot of character development in both of these.
There's a lot of stuff that happens from the first scene to the last scene that really influence the outcome of the two, because the endings are so very different, even though the premise is the same.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of what Marcus had lost from when his mother died is what he gets back. He uses his pain to get back into doing art, to produce something that is creative, to work through his own grief.
Yeah.
Where Colin Firth's character is like the complete opposite of that. It's this moment of like sudden realization.
Yeah, he has like a moment of clarity.
He chooses the right option.
Yeah.
And it's still...
I'm just gonna cry already.
Yeah. So obviously massive spoilers.
Yeah.
After this night with Kenny, where they basically go and play like young kids, and you have this scene of like, you know, as you mentioned earlier, Kenny took the gun, and he's just in his room like, oh, actually, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna live.
Yeah, and it's the colour has come back into the film, like gradually throughout this sequence over the evening with Kenny, where he realizes, you know, this person who I thought was lusting after me is actually someone who really cares about making sure I'm okay, and then he realizes, you know, there are these moments in my life that are good, and those are worth living for.
Yeah,
and he had like laid everything out. He had like his insurance and his will. He had letters, suicide letters. He had put a sleeping bag down for him to kill himself in to make less of a mess. Like it's ridiculous. And he goes and he locks the gun away and he puts the papers away and he burns the suicide notes, and then he has a heart attack. Yeah.
And it's mentioned earlier that he had a heart condition, because it's shown earlier in that day of him having like I can't remember what the colloquial term is for a turn,
right?
Of a moment of like oh no, I'm fine, you know.
Yeah, and I think he's taking medication for it, and then I think, given that that's the day he's decided to die, he doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
But then that obviously comes back to bite him later.
It's a very sad moment, and it's been done other times in other movies, of the person who was in a self-destructive spiral, realizing they want to live, and then that life is taken away from them outside of them, and it's such a interesting way of finishing a film, of watching someone crumble into nothing, realize, no, I'm not going to let it consume me, and then either being murdered or dying. And you're like, oh, okay, so this whole thing was just like a waste of my time here.
And I think the fact that they do mention he has a heart condition, I think it is...
foreshadowing.
Yeah, A, it's foreshadowing, but also I think it means that it has kind of come at, like... It has been because of his own actions that day.
Yeah.
Like, I think he did just not... Because he was... You know, and it's just, like I said, it's all these signs of someone who's planning to take their own life that they suddenly seem more content, that they, you know, are nice to people and they're making amends and they're putting their affairs in order. You know, he takes everything out of his security deposit box and all this stuff, and that they don't care about about things like this. Like, you know, of course he wouldn't bother to take his heart medication.
Yeah.
When he's not planning to be around the next day. And, you know, he's not going to have thought about that in the seconds where he's like, no, I've changed my mind. He's not going to go like, oh, better take the heart medication. You know, that's not what he's thinking about. So it is like he has it has happened because of his own actions. Even though he made the decision to try and reverse it, he couldn't fully reverse it.
Yeah.
In Good Grief, like you mentioned, Marcus does go back to painting, and he finally actually like works through his own grief.
Yeah.
But it's the whole friend group, so they all kind of
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, they all kind of imploded in Paris in a horrible moment where everything went wrong, and then they stop and go, actually, we all need to be better than this.
Yeah.
So when you see them at the end, Sophie has gotten back together with the long-term boyfriend that she had split with.
Yeah.
And she's gotten sober.
Mm.
And Thomas has gotten onto the apps, and then he has met a boyfriend, and now he's actually seeing someone and is working on himself and not stuck in the past anymore. And all three of them have made these strides to actually improve themselves.
Yeah.
And it leaves on like a hopeful note that actually, you know, they have managed to stick together through this, and they're all still you know, this solid friend group, and B, that they are gonna go forward knowing, you know, that they had these flaws and they had these problems, that they can actually work together and work on themselves to improve it all.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
It's definitely a very different tone.
Yeah.
You want to move on to some trivia? Have you got
Yeah,
me?
we can if you want.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot, actually.
Some controversy, if you want that.
Was it around the marketing?
The marketing of A Single Man.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, the marketing around it was very much, even in the shorts and the trailers and all that, the teasers, because of the poster, because of the way they'd shot it, a lot of the stuff that was released publicly did not tell you anything of the plot and the relation that he was gay and he's mourning like his dead partner. This is more like a weird relationship between him and Julianne Moore.
Yeah. So
people went into the movie and was like, this is not what was advertised. Yeah. And of course, obviously, the studio got a lot of heat from it. So that's fascinating. Of just like, you imagine seeing the trailer for Brokeback Mountain and being like, cool, a cowboy movie, and then watching that and being like, what the?
Yeah, it's a shame because it is such a good movie, and it's very much like, I know it's about grief generally, but I think it's so specifically about this experience of this grief that you can't let people see that you're feeling because they can't know about the relationship to begin with, and that doesn't make sense without without the queer element to it necessarily. I don't really have anything about good grief except that it was Dan Levy's directorial debut of a feature film.
Yep.
And then obviously I had the same, that was Tom Ford's directorial debut for A Single Man. The only other things I put in were, first of all, that the role of Kenny had originally been given to a more famous actor. Speculation is that it was Jamie Bell, but that's not confirmed. But he didn't show up for the costume fitting 5 days prior to shooting.
Right.
And then Tom Ford remembered he'd seen the audition tape by Nicholas Hoult and cast him instead. And then the other thing was that, so Colin Firth won a BAFTA for Best Actor for this. And his list of people to thank included the man who repaired his refrigerator. And the reason for that was that he had decided to turn down the part and had drafted an email to Tom Ford and was about to send it when his doorbell rang because a man had arrived to fix his refrigerator. And then in the time that the fridge was getting fixed, he had time to reconsider and then went, actually, I'll take the part. So some refrigerator repairman in I guess in London, I don't know, or wherever Colin Firth was living at the time, is to thank for just like a wonderful performance in this movie. I can't imagine it being anyone but Colin Firth.
Yeah.
He does such a perfect job at it, but he also just like is so suited to that kind of character. Have you seen Supernova?
No.
That's another sad Colin Firth gay movie. Another sad gay Colin Firth movie.
What the hell? Sorry.
What the helling?
So I just happened, while you were speaking, I was looking through Colin Firth's work.
Oh yeah.
And I got to 2027.
Oh, what's he making?
He's doing another movie with Tom Ford.
Oh.
And Nicholas Hoult.
Oh.
And it's based on an Anne Rice novel.
Oh. You'll like that.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Alan Taylor-Johnson, Adele, Mark Strong. Like...
Yeah. I mean, Colin Firth and Mark Strong have worked together before.
Yeah, I was just like, movies. What the hell is this movie? Oh, it's got Tom Ford directing again.
That's cool.
Yeah. Bizarre. Anyway.
Yeah, I like Colin Firth a lot, actually. I think he's I don't know if he's an underrated actor, because I do think people recognize that he's a good actor. But I feel like he can do a really good job. But I think this film in particular really... I can't imagine it without his performance. He's got such a perfect performance in it. But yes, you should watch Supernova.
This also looks sad. I don't want to watch this.
Is it Supernova?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's him and Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, I got that.
And they're a gay couple who have been married for a long time, and then one of them has dementia.
Yeah.
It's very sad. It's a very sad movie.
Okay, after this
maybe we put together, we do compare Still Alice and Supernova, because Still Alice is Julianne Moore's movie about Alzheimer's.
I think we have to go watch something happy after this.
Supernova is a good movie though, but it is another very sad gay Colin Firth movie. So if you're on the lookout, folks, if you're on the lookout for a sad gay Colin Firth movie, A Single Man is number 1, Supernova number 2. And if you know any more, let me know, because I think those are the only ones I've seen where he plays a sad gay man. Yeah, do you have anything else you want to talk about with these?
No, not really. Both very, very different in their vibe. And I feel like they portrayed... Because standardly, like when we do this podcast, and long-time listeners will know, we tend to speak about the movie that was the worst. Because the other one is like, oh, here's the standard, you just made it worse, or if it was like, this was made better, depending on the era of when and what,
Yeah.
And then you get, with our twin films, it usually tends to be the funniness, or, the Ben Affleck's teeth come up quite a bit. Or which one is just like more scientifically relevant or realistic, or one of them's usually the over top, make $1 billion in box office but have no plot. And I feel like both of these movies hold their own. Both of these movies stand on their own.
Yeah.
Both of these movies could be, even though they are very, very similar, are their own thing, just because of the way that it's shot, the way that the characters portray themselves on screen, and how deep you get drawn in by the way that they're written, the way it's shot.
Yeah.
But very, very good cinematography in both of them, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Like, that is a standout. And I feel like, especially in the era of like the shaky cam action movie, I feel like, and you watch like Hong Kong kung fu movies, and I feel like that's the thing that's missing. Everybody's dressed in black, they're fighting in the darkness with a shaky cam. I don't know who's who half this. Like, who's punching who right now? I have no idea.
I particularly like the color grading in A Single Man. Sometimes it's like intensely saturated, and you're like, whoa, it's like hard to look at.
Yeah.
Most of the movie is this very desaturated, cold lighting. This is what this man is feeling, and then you do get the very kind of warm toned, like normally saturated, but slightly above normal saturation. In his memories with Jim, and then in the moments where he's interested in something, or he's happy, or he's like thinking differently, you get this extreme saturation, like you said, in close-ups on eyes, on lips. The little girl, he obviously loves children. He, you could imagine in a different era, him and Jim would have had kids. Which was something that they couldn't do in their lifetime, and that the mother's coming over and apologizing, and he's like, no, I loved hearing about everything she had to talk about. And she has her dad had like a derogatory term for gay people about him, and then she said like, light in your loafers. She's like, it doesn't make sense. You're not wearing loafers. She's like, I think my brother is light in his loafers too, and you could just see him like laughing along, and he just
as he has a gun openly in his bag in a bank.
Yeah,
yeah. That whole thing
as he's just taken everything out of his security deposit box, including his will and his insurance, because he wants to lay them out at home to kill himself next door to this child.
Yeah. And then also threatens her brother.
Yeah,
which I found hilarious.
Yeah. And the kid is so confused. He's like, would you like me to kill you? And he's like, I don't think so. Yeah, it's very interesting where those pops of colour come in. Because it's not, because I think you see it first, you think it's like, oh, this is like his lust, or this is just, it's like you mentioned, like his gaydar, essentially. But it's not that, because it's anything that is bringing him...
I didn't say gaydar. Gaydar is
Yeah. No, I know. His predatory vision for gay men, I think is what you said.
Predator.
Predator, like the predator. I know.
Predator chasing Arnie
like
around
his heat-seeking vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's anything that's bringing him warmth or joy in his life. Like, it's the little things that are reminding him, hey, actually, it's not all bleak. Yeah. It's not all dull. And I really love how they do that. And then towards the end, as he starts to change his mind, as he starts to, be vulnerable, that it just gradually grows in warmth, and then stays that way until he does die, and then it drains out of him again. Yeah, I think it's an incredible use of colour. It's not the most subtle. Or, at times it is, but at other times it's not. But I think it's really well done. And they do the same kind of technique in Good Grief. Not to the same extent, but it's definitely that opening scene where it's Chris's party and he's there with his husband and everything. It's all very lively and very colourful and it's very loud. There's music playing, and then when they realise that's him in the accident, and he runs towards him, and then it cuts to the morning of the funeral, and it's him waking up. There's no sound. It's the music stops. There's no background music, no diegetic or non-diegetic sound. It's just silence and him lying in bed with just everything around him is white or black. And then it's, the desaturatedness of his skin tone even as he gets up and puts on his suit and things, and it's, and it does, they don't do it as much throughout the film, but definitely there are, like, all the moments where he interacts with Theo, there's, very colourful lighting in the performance art place, the karaoke place, and then they go to a gallery and look at, the water lilies and things, and they see all this colour, and in Good Grief, it doesn't necessarily feel like they're trying to do the same thing as A Single Man, where it's very much colour strange for his life, because in Good Grief, it's also about how the creativity has gone from how he stopped painting, and it's him embracing that and going back to creating again, to painting again, that is bringing out that vibrancy, and he does paint. When he does paint, he paints in these like solid colors and things. Like it's not realism color wise. So it's interesting. Yeah, I liked that they both made these kind of very interesting color grading choices.
If you found this episode interesting, please share with a friend, because sharing individually does so much more interaction than you could possibly ever imagine, because otherwise you're just firing a shotgun into the darkness and hoping somebody picks up.
Our next episode, we've got 2. This is a Pride month where we have got 3 Pride episodes this month.
Fantastic.
So that's exciting. And the next one, I feel like is going to be absolutely wild, so I'm very excited.
Good. Stick around for that. If you enjoyed this episode and it's the first time listening to us, please go to ittakes2.co.nz. There is the new starter page where you can find episodes you may be interested in. And if you're wanting to share this podcast with somebody you know, you can also go to the website and go to the page that Lisa spent lots of time making. That'll help you navigate through from our fun episodes, our Disney remakes, and some things you may have not heard of or seen. Thank you for joining us.
We'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.